Zombies, huh? Man, that's crazy. Anyways, hey boss, you want to tell me about the commander that's gone missing? Dying Light 2 is a zombie game that forgets it's a zombie game. Zombie games usually go like this. You get a weapon, you go outside, and you fight hordes of zombies. We see this in plenty of zombie games, like Left 4 Dead, COD Zombies, Back 4 Blood. I bet you forgot that existed. But Dying Light 2 isn't your standard zombie game, because for 85% of it, you're fighting a buff guy and a police officer. And if you're wondering where the zombies are, they're behind me because I just sprinted past them. It barely focuses on them at all, which is something that surprised me. But when you think about it, it's kind of a good thing and also a really bad thing. Let's start with why it's kind of good, but only for a little while. The combat. So as I mentioned before, for majority of the game, you're fighting humans who are actually pretty fun to go up against for a while. They have a lot more character and personality compared to zombies' normal limping and groaning. Instead, they'll shit talk you, fake attacks, and are all around just a lot more fun to go up against. And what I mean by that is that they're fun to dropkick into a wall, because these enemies pose zero threat to you. The combat loop is really satisfying when it works. You got so many abilities to fuck with, but none of these matters because the dropkick is the best. Literally a whole militia could be on your ass, but it doesn't matter. Dropkick and they're all gone. Shit, he just dodged it. Once you spam them too many times, the enemies will start to predict them and dodge out of the way, forcing you to get creative and take them out a different way, like by doing this.
I've got you now, fucker. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, the AI isn't the brightest in this game. Of course, what the game actually wants you to do is whip out your weapon and fight them that way, which is also pretty fun. You've got a lot of different types of weapons in this game, which are all really fun to experiment with for 5 minutes until the weapon smashes into pieces. I fucking hate durability. I hate it in every game that it's in, but I especially hate it in this one, because in Dying Light, it seems like every weapon is made out of 4 sticks of butter attached to a metal rod, because they break in like 5 swings. I love these weapons, I love their designs, I love being able to upgrade them. Stop forcing me to switch to something else every few hours after they break. It's something that ruins an otherwise great aspect of the game, the weapon-to-weapon combat. It's really fun, but it's ruined because you barely get to experience it at its full potential. It'd be much more fun if I could just use my more powerful weapons whenever I want, but I'm purposefully stopping myself from having fun because I know that that weapon could break and leave me stranded with nothing good for a later boss fight, which ruins a lot of fights that would have otherwise been a lot better if I could just use the weapons I want whenever. But when that game's combat works and you're using those weapons that you want, it is satisfying as hell. Getting perfect parries and dodges off, wailing on your stunned enemies, using your weird ass weapon mods to fuck them up, and of course comboing it all together to fly around the map stabbing and dropkicking everyone. It's so fun and satisfying until the enemy blocks and keeps blocking forever. This is when the combat gets boring. As fun as it is at first, after a while it gets really repetitive considering that you're fighting the same enemy types over and over. The buff guy, he swings twice, just back up and then go in and wail on him. The normal size guy, parry them, goodbye. Archers either spam arrows at them or climb all the way up to them, grab their bow and shove it up their ass for being such a nuisance. And that's literally it. That's all the human enemy types in this game. 3. Big little archer. Fight them over and over again. Yeah, it starts to get boring. Sure, you go up against different factions like the police officers called the Peacekeepers, but they're literally the exact same as the Raiders, just reskinned. I know I mentioned earlier that fighting the Raiders was more fun and unique than normal zombies, but my god, that doesn't mean that's all I want to fucking fight. The game needs to balance the enemy types better. Instead, we get 85% humans and 15% zombies. It should be 50-50 so you don't get bored of a certain enemy type. But that's not what happens. For 3/4 of the game, you're fighting humans and it starts getting fucking repetitive around the 20-hour mark. The only time you really do interact with the zombies is when you pick a fight with them on purpose. Literally, that's the only time. Go out on the streets, smack one of them, and a horde will follow. And make sure you don't move too fast, because they can only keep up with you when you're moving at a walking speed. I really wish they were in the game more, because fighting them is actually a lot of fun, but the only times they really show up is occasionally throughout the campaign and at the end. And if you're thinking, well Kang, zombies are reserved for nighttime, guess what, you're wrong, because here's how nighttime goes in this game. Going out at night in this game is not intense at all. I've seen gameplay of Dying Light 1 and it looks way more fun there. There's actual tension, the zombies swarm you feel like you're in real danger. Here, it's literally just run past everyone and there is no punishment at all. Sure, the zombies would occasionally graze my arm hair as I zoom by and do a pixel of damage, but who gives a shit? Literally just keep running and they can't do anything. They're incapable of catching you, incapable of swarming you, incapable of being a threat at all. Which is shocking, because at nighttime is when they're supposed to be the most threatening. Sure, there's this new chase system at night, which sounds cool on paper, where you'll start getting chased by a bunch of zombies and have to make it to a safe zone in time, but even that's not intense at all. The zombies climb up the walls in a single file line, one by one, allowing you to just murder them all individually. They still don't swarm, even when they're meant to. And you'll never get to a level 4 chase unless you're intentionally trying to, because a safe zone, which ends the chase, is always a few hundred meters away. And you could just outmaneuver the zombies and make it to your magic UV light that'll instantly burn all of them and make them run away. Also, side note, I don't understand why the zombies fucking burn alive when within a 2-foot radius of a UV light. Back on topic, fighting the zombies is surprisingly a lot of fun, and I wish they were used more to split up the combat from just fighting humans over and over again, which is something that boss battles try to do. You got some cool designs, like these anomalies, and these buff-ass zombies that look intimidating as hell, and then I punched one to death. It can actually be really fun going up against these weird-ass zombies. That is until they jump under the map and then disappear, making me lose out on a bunch of loot. Thanks, glitches. But on the human side of bosses, yeah, they're shit. Every one of them feels the exact same. They're literally just the normal enemy type, but this time they have a fat stack of health. Meaning that all you have to do is dodge back, hit them twice, and dodge back again for like a minute until they die. Either that, or you could just do this. This is my favorite way of dealing with bosses. These bosses are way too fucking easy, even if you're fighting them underleveled. You can beat them pretty quick. But if they do get you low, then you're not in much danger, because you could just easily parkour your way out of there and heal, and the bosses won't follow. The parkour in this game is actually really good. I've seen it in the first game, and it seems pretty similar here, but with new added abilities like wall running, higher jumps, and being able to crawl up the sides of buildings at lightning speeds. I don't know if this is a glitch, but I love it. For the most part, it seems to have been left pretty similar to the original game, which is a good thing. But one unnecessary change that they did make is in the beginning of the game. It is fucking terrible. For some reason, during the first 2 to 3 hours of Dying Light 2, your character has the stamina of a 780-pound man with a collapsed lung, as he struggles to do the most basic shit like climb up a fucking ladder. Once your stamina goes down, he literally just lets go and accepts his fate. It isn't until you upgrade your stamina throughout the game that you're able to climb more consistently, but for the first few hours, the parkour felt super limited and boring because of this. I don't know why you got limited like this in early game, but thankfully the game lets you level up your stamina pretty fast and you can climb stuff more consistently afterwards. That is until it bugs out and your character decides to not grab onto a ledge of a building and fucking plummets. Thank you very much, bugs. But after that, I took him out the trunk and threw him in a trash compactor. Yeah, that's how I lost my 13th wife. Any questions about the mission? Yeah, what time is it tomorrow? In the morning, so get your bitch ass to bed. Alright, what the fuck? Hey boss, you remember Barry from the radioactive facility? Yeah, what about him? Yeah, well, he looks really weird now. It looks like he drank 4 pints of Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Head, Triple Herkimer, Diamond Filter, Newfoundlander, Deep Aquifer, Pure Spirit Vodka. Yeah! Hey, what the fuck? So anyways, you want to tell me about your 29th wife? Now if you remember earlier in the video, I said this quote. It barely focuses on them at all, which is something that surprised me. But when you think about it, it's kind of a good thing and also a really bad thing. Now at that time, I covered what I found good about the lack of zombies, which was the combat, even if it did get boring after a while. But now let's cover what I found bad about the game being all humans. The fucking story. I'll avoid spoilers, so don't worry, but my god, it just really is not as interesting as the writers think it is. The main plot that drives this 20-hour story along revolves around your character Aiden looking for his sister Mia, who was split up from him because of the main villain. And that's basically it. You walk up to a faction, ask if they know where she is, they say we'll tell you if you do this, and then you do that for the rest of the game. And when I say the rest of the game, I mean it, because a quarter of this game seems to just be you and another character robotically talking to each other with some of the worst facial expressions and audio sync I've ever seen in my entire life.
What? Where?
And for some reason, these characters seem to have a bipolar disorder, because 2 seconds after saying something nice about you, they'll completely change their opinion and fucking insult you.
You're a good man. For a pilgrim. Take care of yourself. What was I thinking? Asking for your help.
Sure, sometimes the story will pick up, but for majority of it, it's just your average, uninteresting, cliche RPG story. It works, but that's all it really does. Sure, some of the factions are cool, and there are some interesting characters in them, like Lawan, Frank, Jax, Sophie, and Ader, but other than that, there's nothing incredible. You can't side with certain factions against the others, which can actually make differences to the story and world, which is great, something that I love in every RPG, but this only really applies to the first and third half of the game, because in the second, basically everything you did gets completely thrown out and is barely mentioned ever again. In fact, the second half of the game is just so fucking boring and drags on and on to the point where I stopped caring, with some absolutely dreadful missions like becoming a fucking electrician and connecting these shitty wires to a bunch of generators for 20 minutes. This is one of the most boring missions in gaming history, and it doesn't help that it literally broke halfway through it and forced me to restart it. Thankfully, it does pick back up near the third half, but man is that second half boring, even more so than the rest. I really wish the story was better, because it seems like the writers really enjoy themselves making it, but it's just pretty generic and uninteresting, with the ending being extremely unsatisfying. I won't spoil exactly why, but it really just felt like a waste of time. Strangely enough though, a place where the game does shine a lot more is in its side missions. I had a lot of fun with these, which is weird. It's usually the other way around with most games, but here is the opposite. The side missions themselves are all pretty unique gameplay wise and story wise. I was pretty interested in these characters and their little narratives. I got more invested in some of these fucking side characters than the main characters. Sure, they do still have the dreaded go over here and get me this item side mission that's in every game, but for the most part, they're done a lot better here. And the gameplay in them are actually a good mix of humans and zombies. Isn't that incredible? You actually fight more zombies in the side missions than the main story. Aside from the normal character side missions though, you have some more that are revolved around discovering things throughout the world, like climbing these massive windmills to create a little camp for you and a bunch of civilians, then Assassin's Creed diving all the way to the bottom, landing on a 15-year-old dirty, disease-infested mattress, which probably gave your character a head full of bed mites. You've also got these water and electricity towers that you can give to a certain faction. There's your basic collectibles like audio logs and folders with lore in it, and a math problem that only an algebra major can figure out, and these bases that you need to take over. These ones are probably some of my favorites. You can either defeat everyone in these bases stealthily, the boring way, or attract everyone to you and murder all of them, the fun way. Now, there are a lot more side missions in the game, but if I were to cover all of them, then this would be a 3-hour-long video, cause sweet Jesus. Out of the 33 hours that I played on this game, I probably spent around 12 doing side missions, which is like less than 1% of all the side missions, and I probably spent the other 18 on the main story. Yep, that sounds about right. And the other 3 crashing and redoing missions. If you thought I wasn't gonna mention the horrendous launch, well, you're wrong, because here we go. Let me just show you a bit of what I encountered in my playthrough, such as meeting Jesus, standing corpses, the undead materializing in front of you, an unknown keybind, stuck on a rope, stuck on a ladder, stuck on a wire breaking a mission, stuck on a wall while gliding, stuck on an antenna and humping it repeatedly, zombies having an orgy, T-pose, opening an invisible fridge, guy warming up by standing in a fire, zombies stuck in between 2 doors, falling forever, Raider ascending to heaven, and finally teleporting to the middle of nowhere and crashing, forcing me to redo an entire mission. And that's just one. I had to redo a lot of missions in this game. If it seems like I've been overly harsh on this game throughout this review, that's because I have. Because my god, no bugs have pissed me off like this game's ever since Cyberpunk. Constant bugs that'll break the flow of fights or fuck up your parkour, constant FPS drops, and a fuck ton of game-breaking bugs that completely ruin the experience. I had 3 frustrating hard crashes, one of which straight up bricked my computer, forcing me to redo hours of gameplay all over again. No, fuck you, stop releasing games in this state, release them when they're fucking ready. I'm so tired of having to play broken ass games and the devs saying, oh, don't worry about it, we're working on patches. Well, guess what? They released a patch on, I think, February 7th or something like that, and it literally did nothing. The FPS dropped on the fucking title cards. How? How does the FPS drop on title cards? And when I got into the actual game, within the first 3 minutes, I already had hard FPS drops and bugs. And if you're thinking about playing this with a buddy, don't even bother, because co-op requires a fucking blood sacrifice to get it to work. The whole co-op portion of this game is broken. The whole game in general is fucking broken. So rant over, I kind of went a little off script there near the end, but honestly, everything I said is 100% true. This game is practically broken in its current state. Sure, it's not as bad as Cyberpunk or Battlefield, those were angry exaggerations, but it's not far off. The bugs really ruined the experience. There's a lot of good here. The combat is really good, even if repetitive at times. The parkour is great when it works. The side missions are surprisingly fun and they'll give you a fuck ton of playtime. Sure, the main story is bad, but that can be forgiven due to all these other great things. It's not perfect, it has flaws, especially the bugs, but once those get patched, Dying Light 2 is an easy recommendation. I have no doubt that this game will be better a year from now, once everything is patched. Hell, the developers are still updating Dying Light 1, and that game is 6 years old. Once everything is patched, try it out. But as of right now, because of the bugs, I'd stay away from this game for now.
Yes!